Intro to Trigonometric Ratios. Trigonometry may seem daunting, but it is easy once you get the hang of the functions and how to apply them. Trigonometry is the study of ratios and the sides of triangles, and the word literally means triangle measure, as tri means triangle and metry means measure. Let's take a look at the core functions of trigonometry. We have sin, which can be abbreviated to sin, cosine, which can be abbreviated to cos, and tangent, which can be abbreviated to tan. These functions will find the ratios of certain angles within a right triangle. We can use the phrase SOHCAHTOA to help us to remember how to use each of the functions. SOA is for sin. It is opposite over hypotenuse. Ka can be used for cosine, as it is adjacent over hypotenuse. And TOA is for tan, as it is opposite over adjacent. So what does all this hypotenuse and opposite and adjacent mean, and how do we find those? So let's start with hypotenuse. We have a triangle. It's a right triangle. This side has a measure of 5, this side has a measure of 3, and this side has a measure of 4. This side with the measure of 5 is the hypotenuse, as it is hypotenuse is only present in a right triangle, and it is the side opposite to the right angle, and it is the longest side in a right triangle. As this side is opposite to the right angle, it is the hypotenuse. So let's say we're trying to find the ratio of this angle right here in this triangle. It's the same triangle from before. I already know that this side is the hypotenuse, as it is opposite the right angle. This side with the measure of 3 is going to be the opposite, as it is opposite the angle that I'm trying to find the ratio of. And this side with the measure of 4 will be the adjacent, as it is adjacent to the angle. So let's find the sin. Sin is opposite over hypotenuse, so we're going to use the hypotenuse side, and the opposite side, except in reverse order. So as sin is opposite over hypotenuse, we have our opposite 3 over hypotenuse over 5, so the sin is 3 over 5. Cosine, adjacent, right down here, over hypotenuse. So in this triangle, adjacent 4 over 5 hypotenuse. Tan, opposite over adjacent, so 3 over 4. Let's look at finding the ratio of another angle in this same triangle. So we have the same triangle, same right triangle. So let's try to find the ratio of the ratios of this particular angle. I know that this is the hypotenuse with the measure of 5, as it is opposite the right angle. This side with the measure of 3 is now going to be the adjacent side because it is adjacent to this angle. And this side, the opposite, will be the opposite with a measure of 4, as it is opposite to the angle. I can use SOHCAHTOA just to remind myself exactly what each function will be doing. So sin is going to be 4 over 5, as it is opposite, which has a measure of 4, over hypotenuse, which has a measure of 5, 4 over 5. Cosine, oops, we want tan out of there, not yet. Cosine is going to be 3 over 5, because cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, 3 over 5. Now it's time for tan. Tan will be 4 over 3, because it's opposite over adjacent, and opposite has a measure of 4 in this triangle, and adjacent has a measure of 3 in this triangle. Now let's apply these same functions to a different triangle. Let's use triangle GIH. This is also a right triangle. And I'm going to find the ratio of measure H, angle H. So the hypotenuse is going to be the side with the measure of 17, as it is opposite the right angle. The adjacent side, because this is adjacent to the angle, has a measure of 8. And then this side with the measure of 15 is going to be the opposite, as it is opposite to angle G. Now we can put SOHCAHTOA up here just to remind ourselves what to do. Let's start with sin. Sin is opposite over hypotenuse. So we could go down here. This angle has a measure of 15, so we're going to put 15 on top. And 17 is going to be on the bottom, as the hypotenuse has a measure of 17. Cosine, adjacent over hypotenuse. 8 has adjacent side has a measure of 8 over the hypotenuse, which has a measure of 17. 8 over 17. And finally, tan, opposite over adjacent. So we have 15 over 8 because the opposite has a measure of 8 and the adjacent has a measure, opposite has a measure of 15, adjacent has the measure of angle 8. So as you can see, trigonometry may seem daunting, but really the core functions are pretty simple. You just have to remember which side goes over which in each different function. But SOHCAHTOA is an easy way to remind yourself of this, and once you learn that, it's pretty easy to apply the rest.